Outlaw Sports is brought to you by Molson Canadian, made from Canada, and Rocky Mountain Barbecue, Alberta barbecue cuisine at its best.
How many Roughneck games do you do on Sportsnet? You do 4?
We're doing 4 for now, and we'll see
Roughnecks
what
in the
happens.
Rush, Edmonton Rush.
We're doing all the Battle of Alberta games, and then we'll see what happens from there, because we might do some playoff games or some later season games and a chance to pick some up on the radio. So it could be lots of lacrosse here down the stretch. Do
you have lacrosse in your background, or were you just the guy who said, okay, I'll do it?
Basically what happened was a few years ago, my boss on the radio said, hey, dude, would you like to do some lacrosse games? You get a chance to travel? I'm like, yeah, I'm in. So I hit the books and I started learning the game, and then within a couple of games I was hooked. So now I watch the NCAA, I watch the NLL, I watch the summer lacrosse in Ontario and BC. It's a great sport. It's a great sport.
It is a good sport, and the Calgary Roughnecks are doing well. Second to the Denver Mammoth, or the Colorado Mammoth, 7-3. Buffalo's at the Dome this weekend. Here's one thing I want to ask. Brad Bannister used to own the Roughnecks, I think, for 10 years or so, and he was a little concerned that the crowds were dwindling at the Dome for the home games. And he says, come on, we got to get more people there. Well, since the Flames have owned this team, well, this year, I don't see the crowds getting bigger, Pat. I see them maybe dwindling a little bit or stagnant. I thought the Flames might grow this team, at least grow the attendance. Are you concerned?
I'm not, because I've talked to Mike Moore, who is in charge of the business operations of the Roughnecks and the Hitmen, and we've talked a number of times, and I'm pretty certain that Brad was papering things there at the end. I think there were 5,000 to 6,000 fans that maybe weren't there and were kind of just put into the official attendance report. So I think that now you're getting a much more accurate representation. And the Flames claim that the crowds are actually up from the crowds that were there. And having been there for the last few years under Brad and the first year now under the Calgary Flames, it does seem like there's more people in the building. It does. So even though the crowds seem like they're a little smaller in terms of their announced numbers, in terms of what's actually in the building, I think there's more people actually there. And they're trying to do a slow burn on this. They're not trying to push it down everybody's throat. They're trying to build it slowly and make it so it's another property. Because you take a look at what the Minnesota Swarm do, the Buffalo Bandits do, and the Colorado Mammoth do. They all have one thing in common. They're owned by their NHL parent club. And now the Calgary Flames, they didn't have a whole lot of time, but their first year now owning the Calgary Roughnecks. Well, all three of those teams that I mentioned do really good in terms of attendance. The Flames are hoping that they can, you know, in the near future get somewhere between 12 and 14, I think, in there on a regular basis. And for big games, maybe once or twice a year in the regular season in the playoffs, come close to a sellout. I mean, Colorado basically sells out every game, and so does Buffalo. I mean, these teams do great, and it's not out of the question that the Calgary Flames could be able to do that with the Roughnecks, just not this season. It's a little further on down the road.
I wouldn't be surprised if the Flames don't make the playoffs. The Flames do a real push, advertising push, marketing push to get more fans in the stands for the playoffs. Agree there?
I would agree.
Yeah.
The Hitmen and the Roughnecks all of a sudden get a much bigger thrust once the playoffs or the playoff push would be done for the Calgary Flames, and we'll see if this team's able to get there.
Ultimate Fighting Championship finally coming to Calgary. Pat, a UFC spokesman, recently said, Calgary's going to be happy. We're extremely happy to be coming. It's a long time coming. It's been in Vancouver, it's been in Montreal, it's been in Toronto. It hasn't been in Calgary. It's about time.
Yeah, and I think that those markets were logical to go to first. They're bigger in terms of population, and they wanted to test drive Canada. I mean, they've been saying for the longest time how important Canada is for their business plan. Well, this is the first test of maybe a smaller market in terms of what they're used to going to. I mean, Calgary is one of the 6 major cities in this country, but you know, you compare it to some of the other markets that they've run in the United States, 1 million people isn't the biggest market that they've been to. So it's a test, and the other thing that it's a test for is where it's situated geographically, because they like to go to cities that are close to things. So when they go to Portland, they like that Seattle's there. They like that people from Northern California will come and people from Idaho will come, right? And so when they go to places that maybe aren't the biggest centers, they want places that are close to others. Well, yes, Edmonton's 3 hours away. You've got Red Deer that's 90 minutes away. But what else is close to Calgary? There's not a ton. So this is a big test for them, and it's a big test to see how the Calgary market draws, because they ran a show with their sister promotion, the WEC, in Edmonton a couple of years ago. Didn't do great, but it was also on a Sunday at a bad time of year, and I think they realized that. So this will be a really big test, is to see how Western Canada rallies around a show in Western Canada. Do people from the interior BC come? How many people travel from Alberta and Saskatchewan and Manitoba? Because there is a huge following in Western Canada. So this is a big test. I'm looking forward to it. It should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, UFC has done their homework. You correct me if I'm wrong, but don't they know who they get texts and emails and the word from on big events? A lot of their traffic comes from Alberta, comes from Calgary, right?
Yeah, pay-per-view buys is the big thing too, because the bars all get it, and then a ton of the individuals get it. So they track the pay-per-view buys more than anything, and Alberta per capita is one of their tops. And Ontario's huge for them, BC's huge for them, Quebec is huge for them. So the pay-per-view buys is a big kind of way that they track where they want to go next. And Calgary's been pushing for it. This is a Calgary commission that has been under a lot of fire from the worldwide mixed martial arts community, going back to a fight that a promotion ran where there was a little bit of a controversial stoppage with a pretty high-profile name in Kim Couture. We've both talked to Sheila Bird, and her spectacular finish of Kim Couture was really scrutinized. And I think a lot of people were a little skeptical whether or not the UFC, being the creme de la creme of mixed martial arts, was going to deal with a commission that has been under fire. Well, the Calgary Commission wanted to prove that they weren't Mickey Mouse, so they're like, we want to court the UFC, bring them in. So let's see how it goes, because the Calgary Commission's got a lot to prove here.
Saddledome is the place where it's going to be. It's the best place. It's the only place for this. Potentially 20,000, I guess, could go there. I think they're going to get it. I mean, my speculation in this market, I think 20,000 is doable in July, don't you?
Well, and if you've ever been to a UFC fight live, it's awesome. I mean, not only do they use the Jumbotron and the Power Ring, they put 4 100-foot screens, 6 100-foot screens around the building. So it gives you the perfect way to watch. So even if you have the worst seat in the house, you still have a great seat in the house. They can add fans because they've got the people they can put on the floor. So yeah, they'll be able, I think they'll be able to sell this thing out. And the UFC is, I've talked to the guys, I've talked to the guys who are kind of running the promotional side of it. They're pretty excited, and they're pretty committed to making sure that this is going to be a huge thrust, and pretty committed to making sure they make this successful.
I said you do lacrosse and you do hockey. You do it all. You also do UFC. I've seen you in the ring doing the Jumbotron, so you've done that all too. You love that sport.
I love mixed martial arts, and I love talking to the guys. It's a lot of fun.
Let's talk some football. Peyton Manning has a new home.